underway, and we are underway with a real show this week. Hi, everyone. T-Sibs. Welcome to AHL this week, and as usual, we have Broski, and joining the show now, hopefully as many weeks as I can do it, is Stockton GM, MGM, and GM over at the Manitoba Moose, Dead Soul Rising. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing after a week's worth of playing and probably even more activity trading?
I'm feeling great. Stressful as it can be with all the trades happening and getting your rosters complete for this next week coming up here, and making sure you got a schedule going for your boys in the chat so they can stop blowing up your phone and stuff like that. And stressful as can be, but always fun doing it.
Yeah, it's been a good start, I'd say, overall. I mean, would have liked to start out a little bit better on our end, but ultimately, like he said, scheduling and whatnot can be quite aggravating at times, but yeah, looking forward to next week.
So you're saying sometimes it's difficult to get everybody on the same page and volunteer to play games? I don't think we had that problem, did we, Broski? I'm trying to think if we ran into that issue.
Just a little bit here and there, you got to see if those certain players will bend for a different day. I mean, everybody wants the Sunday games, nobody works on those days, and
oh, for sure.
For some reason, Sunday is always a day you got like 15 different people signed up for those games.
Everybody, and then the rest of the week it starts to thin out more and more and more.
And you get that Thursday game, and there's maybe 6 people signed up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm too old to remember that there's school and there's in college, and I'm like, don't you people work? And then no, they're going to college. Some of them are done by 1 o'clock, so they're home playing by 2. That's the part that I don't get, I guess anymore, because it's just not in my mindset. But that's what happens when you're playing with a bunch of people who are such a different age range. And then what else do they have going on? Are they working? Are they taking care of kids as well? We have plenty of guys and women who are in this league who are taking care of kids or whatever. So there are all these variables that enter into whether or not somebody's available to play. And then you hope and pray that their PS4 or their internet doesn't have a major issue.
Oh, that's a whole nother topic itself for this week.
Well, we had that DDoS attack. That was
Friday?
Was that Friday? Was that last Friday or this Friday?
Just this Friday.
Friday.
Was this Friday? Okay. Yeah. So at least that happened after our schedule was done for the week. Which is, if they're going to do that, do it on a Friday so there's plenty of time to recover.
Absolutely. There's certainly some issues in the beginning of the week also. I know my team suffered a few late starts because of it as well. Had to restart PlayStations, and that was a bit of a pain.
Well, MGM could talk about that because our game took another half hour to start because of issues with using the club they had. They had to make a whole brand new club just to get into the game with us, which I'm sure that didn't make you feel good about having to go crazy doing that.
No, exactly. And we ended up having to close down our club and make a new one because we couldn't get the club challenge working. So we just scrapped the whole club altogether.
So those updates
hopefully
are currently good then.
Yeah.
Go ahead, bro.
I'm gonna say exactly what you said. Hopefully the latest update here really fixed up the game and the way the club is played, and hopefully those invitations for club invites are easier to get into and people don't get legged out as easily right off the bat, and it'd make this season go by much quicker, much easier.
It almost seemed like the opposite, though. I mean, right after that patch came in, that's when a lot of people started having problems with getting into the rooms and lagging out. So
it seems like it caused more problems than it resolved ultimately.
Right.
Exactly. But we got the stick lift back, right? So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, so...
I do got to say...
Go ahead. I was just going to say, as a goaltender, I don't... I haven't experienced it much, but do you guys... I'll start with Broski. Do you guys feel like that's working properly again?
I love the stick lift. I gotta say, I've been using it a lot on my forecheck, and it's going great. I love it. It's definitely back. It's not as good as it was in 16, but I'm happy with that. You know, in 16, I felt the stick lift was overpowered a little bit, if I don't say so, and I'm definitely happy it's back, but not as good as it was in 16.
I find I'm having a hard time even remembering to use it because I've been training myself not to use it for so long now since the game came out.
That's a
Been the
common
penalty
reaction that I've heard, and maybe you feel the same way, Dead Soul. But absolutely, a lot of guys have trained themselves not to use it at this point, and now they have to go back and remember that it is another weapon for them.
Yeah, that's definitely the case for me. I've had to kind of adjust to be able to use that as well, and a little bit less of the poke check. Even that seems to be working a little bit smoother now too, for me at least. I found.
Yep, definitely.
So obviously, week one, you get over that hump of week one and all the issues that you have either with the PlayStation Network, with EA, and then it comes down to what kind of issues are you having with your club. Do obviously you're going to have some guys on there that you know how they play, but you may not have played with them in a club before, in a league before, and how will they adjust? And obviously, we saw a lot of movement this week in the AHL and a lot of trades and a lot of guys going on waivers. And besides the fact that that's hectic as hell, that kind of speaks to the depth of talent that I think exists. And we talked about that a little bit last week, Broski. But if we're able to make this many moves, and a lot of trades and bringing guys up from the TC roster, and we've been able to do that. I mean, to me, that says that there is a ton of talent in this league.
For sure, there's a ton of talent in this league, and that goes back. There's a lot of guys lighting it up in this league. But I'm just going to go ahead and talk about our team here for about 2 seconds there. We, of course, you get a full roster after bidding, then your TC gets assigned to you, and everybody loves a TC when you got to go through an extra 20 names there. But honestly, I love the TC because we found 2 studs on our TC that are definitely going to help out in the long run. I don't know about you guys, but the level of talent, there's more talent in this league than people expect.
Yep, 100% agree.
Yeah, it's. I think just by the games that we've played this week, we're seeing that there is. There's been some pretty competitive games. There have been a lot of one-goal games for quite a few teams. You look at a team like Lehigh Valley that is 5-2. Their one-goal game record is 5-0-2. So I mean, a lot of one-goal games being played in some of these divisions out of the 9 that played, and so. That tells you right there the competition's going pretty good, and that there were some close, matches going on. So, I think that's the case. But we, I think everybody, and I don't know the stats, but I'm assuming every team in this league made a move of some kind, if not a trade, at least putting somebody on waivers or whatever. And I mean, typically, you guys could talk to a little bit more, but typically. Dead Soul. I guess this usually takes a couple of weeks for things to settle down, right?
Oh, for sure. It takes, you got to be patient. A lot of the time, you just got to run with what you got for a while and just see how the lines kind of perform together. I know in my situation, for our team at least, it's more of a scheduling thing. I find a lot of people seem to be only available on the same night. So trying to get everybody their 3 games on a Sunday or a Monday kind of, span of that time is just impossible to do. And sometimes it comes at the expense of a player that might be available at that time. And you just got to make those kind of decisions. Sometimes it's part of it, and it's a hard decision to make, but you need to make sure that people are available and you can actually get people to play those games when you need them.
So since we have you as part of this group, Dead Soul, and you being a part of the Board of Governors, and having to read a lot of emails this weekend, there was a lot of talk earlier in the week about training camp prospects, understanding their status. What can you do with randomly assigned players, knowing who can be traded, and in what way that guys can be moved around. It just
Full-time call-up.
Yeah. It just seems like there were a lot of questions this week. Is that And do we think that's because there are a lot of new GMs, or is it that still guys haven't really on the PS side haven't really quite grasped the intricacy of the rules yet as far as player movement's concerned to really have it down pat?
I'm sure it's a bit of both. I mean, the rules have changed a little bit too because, they allowed the prospects in last minute due to numbers, obviously. So some of the rules, had to be adjusted somewhat. I mean, they're obviously trying to go by the rules as they're written, but when you have guys, uh, prospects in the league that normally wouldn't be in this situation right now, playing full time in the AHL, some of the rules are a little bit hard to kind of, I guess, go by in that sense. It makes things a little bit difficult. And I know some of the rules changed, not those ones in particular, but it's just more of the format of how we did it this season. It makes it a little bit more difficult. But it's certainly partly because there's a lot of new GMs, and some of the old GMs maybe didn't have this problem last season as much. So it's kind of new to a lot of people, I think.
I
MG,
think
how are you dealing with it on your side? And what's it been like trying to make moves and work with other GMs with their knowledge of the rules? How do you feel like it's played out for you so far?
so far it's been good for me. I've spent quite a bit of time going over the rules myself, so I didn't want to feel like I was a step behind anybody. As far as if I can touch on that prospect situation, I think one of the big issues there that confused a lot of people was the RA tags were incorrect on everyone's roster up until Friday. So it showed pretty much every prospect on your TC as RA, which wasn't the case. They've changed it since then. But I think that's what confused a lot of people about whether or not they were allowed to do full-time call-ups for the prospects.
Yeah, Thorpe on our YouTube chat was certainly looking for us to maybe talk about the rule book a little bit, and I'm sure he's as frustrated as some others who like you, MG, have taken the time to look it over and read it and really get a grasp of it. But despite being able to do that and taking the time with it, and Broski's been around for a couple of seasons now, how do you feel you have a grasp of the rule book and how to move players around? Are you still finding things that you're learning about it, or do you feel like you have a pretty good handle of it?
Yeah, I feel like I have a decent handle, but oh, sorry, you're talking to Broski or
Yeah,
me? Sorry.
well, you go first, and then we'll let
Yeah,
Broski
sorry.
speak.
sorry, Broski.
It's all good,
There's
buddy.
one thing I did I had to ask was I was moving TC players and I wasn't 100% sure if I trade for somebody that's on somebody else's TC, if they go straight to my TC or if they go on my roster and I have to push them down to the TC. But I asked and was clarified. But little things like that, you can't always find every single situation in the rule book. So there are certain things that you can't read and know about. You just have to know from experience, I guess.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
I think honestly this season for me has been really easy for rules and stuff like that, but that's obviously because I've been around for a little while in this league and I've kind of learned them over time. And the newest thing that they had this season was the RA tags and not being able to do full-time call-ups for certain prospects that were signed up after, I believe it was like October 8th. That was basically the newest rule that I had to get used to. I mean, on my TC currently, there's only like maybe 5 or 6 of them, not a whole lot of them. So it wasn't really a big detriment to the team that we have over in Tucson. So, I mean, the rules have there's been a few tweaks in the rules, and I mean, if anything, they've made a few more clear. I haven't really had a problem with any of them though yet, and I think it's more so dealing with the newer general managers to make sure they understand, like, you can't trade a guy that you're not 100% sure if he's going to be active or not. I think it's more so going to be a struggle with getting everybody on the same page about the rule book.
Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, couple of other things that I know guys have wanted to talk about. So, and with 17 so far, the new OCR, I know some guys are not happy with it. Some guys are okay. Yeah, it works, and uh, stats are relatively. It's nice to have all those extra stats, but we're still having an issue with the total shots and what that comes out. To me, that's the only issue I'm seeing right now is total shots. Now that I can, and I wasn't able to do it last season. Now that I can upload multiple shots at once, it takes me 2 uploads once I take all the screenshots to get everything up there. But I've had to do some maneuvering of stats with the shots because it is gonna be a little bit off, and there's not much you can do as far as adjusting the player's stats for shots because you don't know who you would give or take away from. But other than that, you guys having any difficulty with the new screenshots and with OCR so far?
Well, that you actually just reminded me that there were some pictures I took earlier this week, and it's been pretty much every single game. I'm pretty sure it's the shots, like you said. It might be hits as well, but I'm almost certain it was the shots.
Right.
Where you would upload the image. You'd see, okay, well, you had 14 shots. The other guy had like 20 shots. The other team had 20 shots. But then when I go and I see all the players with the actual shots that they made, they don't add up. So it's already EA seems to be having some mathematical problems within their setup. So I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but I know I definitely did. I kind of had to double, triple check, send it to other people. Hey, am I, making this up in my head here, or is this wrong? And like, no, that's wrong.
And then what do you go with? Do you go with the game stats that show the shots for each team, or do you add up the actual player shots and go with that for your goalie saves? Right, it's hard to know which should take precedent, right?
Yeah, and I've also had to manually input a lot of the stats, usually the plus minus, the hits, the shots, and some of the goalie stats had to be manually inputted as well. So I find it's been pretty consistent. I wouldn't blame it on the OCR per se. There's definitely some issues with EA on their end too.
Yeah, I do find that depending on which column you have highlighted for the pictures makes a difference on whether or not how well the OCR picks it up. I've done a few different tries, and it seems like if I keep the highlighted column closer to the right of the screen, I have less problems, whereas if I keep it at the very first set of stats highlighted, I seem to have more problems with the OCR.
Oh, it's good to know. I didn't really try that up myself, so I'll try that for next time, see if that helps a little bit.
Yeah, I think some of these things when they first come out, they were a little bit hit and miss, and it is some. We're basically doing testing for it right now as it is, and but again, I think the positive is all these extra categories that we weren't getting before, and I think that's nice to have. It's not only good for the players to see what they're doing, but for management to be able to see what these guys are doing, and I think that's helpful in the end.
I do
Go ahead.
I do find the takeaway giveaway stats that EA produces. I don't know how much you can bank on them. When you have one team that says they gave the puck away 30 times, but the other team only has 12 takeaways, how can you give the puck away 30 times, but they can only have 12 takeaways? So it seems skewed each game for both teams.
Right.
And that was the question I also had. Is I noticed the same thing that you were noticing there too, and I'm starting to think maybe EA counts a dumping or a chip to the far side boards as a giveaway as well, because it is a loss of possession. I'm thinking that's maybe a possibility for that problem right there.
Well, keep chiming in with LG, and let the boys at the site know whether or not you're having any issues. Derek on the YouTube chat talks about pop-ups where guys are sending in images with the pop-up showing up, and that is part of what Tris mentioned, and I think even Frost mentioned it in some responses. Make sure that when you take that screenshot, that pop-up in the upper left corner isn't showing up. It isn't somebody's invite. It isn't something that when you switch to do the screenshot, it says broadcast paused, anything like that. Make sure those aren't showing up when you take your screenshots.
And as well, if you're streaming and you've got the Twitch set up on the right side of the screen, that's going to throw off the OCR as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's start looking at what happened this week, and I think what I want to do is quickly go over the league standings so that we can get a kind of a grasp of how teams are doing, and why some of the couple of the games that I wanted to mention were interesting this week. Right now Springfield in the Eastern Atlantic leading Hershey by one game. Actually have the same amount of points, 6-3. the Thunderbirds. The Bears at 5-2, along with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, who are on a 2-game winning streak. Sound Tigers at 5-4. The Providence Bruins started out with 3 losses and were able to put 4 wins in there as well. Hartford Wolfpack at 2-4, and the WBS Pens at 3-6. Eastern North has the Crunch and Utica at 6-3. Utica making a lot of moves and certainly trying to do what they can to shake things up a little bit. I guess they had some issues early on, but wanted to make some moves, and they've done quite a good job doing some acquisitions. Albany Devils at 5-4. Marlies at 4-4-1. Senators 4-5, along with the Ice Caps and the Rochester Americans, who are now looking for a GM on that team. And so Ryan from the Sabres, the owner, is overseeing things right now for Rochester.
I think they already appointed
Did they?
Push. Yeah, I believe so. That's what I saw.
Okay, so that must have happened today, because I know earlier Ryan was online. So, well, good. That's good. At least they've got some leadership taking care of it now. In the West, Chicago Wolves 9-0. Only 2 of them were 1-goal games that they won, so they've been playing pretty well in their matchups. They had a couple of games against some top teams, but were able to handle Rockford, I think, this week fairly easily. Rockford at 6-1, the Wild and the Admirals at 5-4 in third and fourth place. The Moose 4-4-1, and after that, Cleveland Monsters, who looked early on before the season started like they would definitely be good contenders, had a rough start, but have won 2 in a row and are now at 3-4-1. Griffins at 2-6-1, and the Charlotte Checkers have yet to win a game. They are winless in 9 matches. In the Western Pacific, the Gulls are 6-3, along with the Bakersfield Condors. The Gulls on a 5-game winning streak. The Stars are 5-3 after they started off 5-0. They're now 5-3-1, losing 3 in a row. The Reign and the Tucson Roadrunners both at 5-3-1. Stockton at 5-4. Rampage 2-5-1, and on a 5-game losing streak, the Barracuda, who are now 2-7. So those are the standings as we see them now. And again, if you looked at the 1-goal games, like we mentioned, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms are 5-0-2 in 1-goal games this season. Looked like there were quite a few of them. Certainly Bridgeport at 3-1. The Bruins 3-0-2 in 1-goal games. So, not lots of close matchups so far in this season, and we're seeing some good competition early on. A couple of games we saw Thursday night was a matchup of again a couple of the top teams in the Eastern Atlantic, where the Phantoms and the Bears paired off on Thursday night, with the Phantoms coming away with a 3-2 win. So the fact that Hershey started out well, certainly still have a good team, but they were beaten up a little bit later in the week, and Lehigh Valley Phantoms showing that they're definitely going to be battling with the Bears all season long. There were a couple of other games to mention. Late game on Wednesday, where the Admirals beat the Wild 2-1. The Wild, again, one of those teams that we liked a lot in the preseason, and right now at 5-4. But the Admirals certainly put up a good battle in that one, and took that game. Again, guys, let me just start with Broski. We're seeing matchups. We talked about a lot of these teams last week and where we thought they were. Some of the late week matchups, I'm wondering if maybe some of the maneuvering and some of the moves that went on earlier in the week may have nullified some of the things that we said about a few of these teams, and maybe making a lot of moves early on is causing some of these guys to struggle a little bit, at least in the first week.
Oh, that's a very good possibility. The first week, there's a few surprises, a few teams that we thought would be maybe higher up in the standings, and a few teams that we would expect to be a little bit lower in the standings or way up there. It's very interesting to me because there were a lot of moves before the season even started. There's a lot of post-season or preseason, if I should say so, moves that happened, and I know we made a few, and some worked out, some didn't work out so well. But it's hard to say. You just don't know what players are gonna. Is the biggest thing was a new game. The biggest thing was that NHL 16 was a much different game where one person could hold the puck and skate right in and score on a goaltender, whereas like this season it's like you're gonna need to use your team, you're gonna need to move the puck around in order to get that deep into the zone, and you got to work it for a good quality chance. So the biggest thing that I think it is new game and people getting used to 17 still.
Sure.
I think there's a few people that more than a few people have struggled. I think especially at goaltender this year, there's been a few players that have been surprisingly struggling that put up huge numbers last year and have had a hard time adjusting to the game right out the gate.
Well, we talked to I know in the chat the other day in the AHL chat. Was talking to Mooner a little bit, and Jade Dragon, who was also in the chat as well. We were talking a little bit about some of the changes, and I know Mooner is not at all happy, and he feels like he's really struggling to try and figure out how he needs to play in this version of the game. For me, it didn't seem like it was too tough for me. It seemed more intuitive, but I think it winds up being what's your mindset about playing that position, and what do how do you adjust to this one? To me, I always felt like 16 was a struggle because I'm always trying to position really well, and I don't think 16 worked. I don't think 16 worked that well to anybody who was trying to position well, because it was just too easy for wraparounds. It was just too easy to get pucks past defensemen, two defensemen across ice, cross crease to someone else for an easy one-timer. And now that a lot of that's kind of been taken away, I think positioning is a much easier thing to do. It means more because you're not getting those wild, from one side of the board to the other side, one-timers happening. And I think, for me, I definitely have become a better goalie because of 17, but some established guys, like you said, I think are really struggling with how they need to adjust their game.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The other game that I thought was an interesting one, just from the side of how wild it was the Admirals and Griffins. They went to a double overtime game that wound up ending in a 3-2 final. Jade had made 34 saves in that game, and I thought it was I thought it was a fun one to watch. It was some solid play all around, and those guys did not want to. Neither team wanted to give that one up easily, but going back to goaltending, I think it's showing some good strength all around. I've played with Jade in the league. I'll talk more about him later, but I think goaltending, we had some guys move over maybe and play goalie this time around, and I think some of the established guys that we knew are doing well as well. So I think the goaltending crop is probably better than it has been in the other two seasons. But those are the games that kind of stuck out to me. Now that we have some established patterns of teams that are doing well, we'll certainly have some more key matchups coming up. But any of you guys want to talk about some games, even if they're your own games, that you thought were interesting matchups and some solid performances?
Well, I guess I'll pipe up real quick about our game versus the Wolves. We had a pretty close game there. It was actually one of our one-goal games, one-goal loss games there, and we were leading, I believe, 2-1 for a good portion of the game, and then they were able to come back and fight their way through. So I'm pretty impressed with what they've done. 9-0 right now is just, it's pretty damn good. That's very hard to do, to get to string together wins, let alone 9 like that. So they're definitely a team that has it together right now. Like they're ready. They're playing well together, at least the line that I saw, and so I'm quite impressed with what I saw there. Another team that we played against was our first blowout loss, and that was the Ice Hogs. They gave us a good spank in there, and I know that one player in particular that gave us a hard time that got quite a few points in that game is actually also on the on the top 10 here, I guess, or it was NJ Devil 8. He had about I think 5 points in that game with us, or was it 6? It was 6 points. So
Oh, jeez.
he's somebody, like he's definitely a good player. He was hard to shut down, and I mean not just him, but his whole team. They moved the puck around very well and gave us a tough time to really shut them down. So I have to say, I'm definitely impressed with both those teams, with what I saw personally on the ice and the guys that they lined up. So that's should be interesting to see those guys go at it whenever they do again.
One matchup in particular that I noticed is Bakersfield versus Tucson. Actually, the game was so close. Honestly, it was like you were biting your fingers. It was like 1-0, 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, 3-4. Then that was it. And the game was so close. I believe the shots were like 14 shots and then 13 shots for the other guys. And then the time on attack was neck and neck. It was like 5:30 for Tucson and like just 6 minutes for Bakersfield. And every category was dead on even basically, and it was a good game to watch. I'm sure there's a broadcast out there if you guys want to see that. No, but it was a neck and neck game, and I love those kind of games, especially when you're watching them. And it's not fun when you're not playing them though, because you're on your edge of your seat and you're like cringing every time a shot's getting thrown at the net. And they're definitely fun games to watch though, the close ones. It's just not fun when it's not your team.
Yeah, there was one other game that I had listed, and I know that Dolphin and Derek were talking about it a little bit in the YouTube chat right now about the 8-7 rain over the Gulls game on late Sunday, and that one was. I think both of them had used the word ugly. Obviously, if it's an 8-7 game, it is a bit ugly. But if you like a lot of scoring and certainly a lot of back and forth, you can go check that one out. I think there is a stream of it. Those are the kind of games that I think, and that's a Sunday game. I think, if you're not too familiar with your line mates, or especially on defensive pairing, if there's any kind of issue with knowing where each one is going to be, that's the kind of game I would think you would wind up getting early in the season until these guys figure out how to gel. And I'm assuming nobody. I don't think we had any issue like that, Broski, but I'm assuming MG and Dead Soul, you guys didn't have any games where you felt like guys were maybe so out of whack that they were out of position a lot.
Well, there's definitely games like that happen. But sorry, I'll let you go.
Yeah, no, I didn't. It wasn't a big issue though. It's been fairly smooth, at least for the league games. I have had some issues just playing drop in and club games, but luckily so far nothing major during the week.
Yeah, I wouldn't say for our team that we've had a major issue with that. I already at the start of the season kind of preached a certain kind of style that we just need to try to be on the same page, just to make sure that our positioning is what it needs to be, so that we all have an idea of where we should be and where we will be if certain circumstances arise. I know you probably don't want me bringing this game up, but the game against the Tucson Roadrunners was a good one this week. It actually tested our resilience, and you guys were up on us 4-1 in the beginning of the first period there. Definitely had our we were all a little bit down about it because we allowed that to happen. But you guys have a good squad there, so it was not an easy game, but we were able to pull through, and I think that was a fun game to play and come back and win in overtime there. So I mean, it's nice early on to know that we have that in us, that we can come back from a game like that and be able to just work together and work through that negative feeling that you might get when you're down like that, because it puts a lot of pressure on you to even come back in that kind of game. So I think that kind of teamwork will be helpful for us down the road.
Well, I understand Dead Soul has to go now, so we'll talk to him somewhere down there. Well, you know what? Those are the kind of games that those are the kind of games that that definitely we have to learn from, and every once in a while when you have one of those that slip through your fingers and you wind up on the losing end, maybe even if you do come back and win it, you have to say, okay, well, how did that happen? And so I think that's It's
Exactly.
an interesting thing to have to address with players and try and figure out. But
I mean, you can't. I don't think you can fully blame it, but I believe that the momentum swing can be pretty drastic in this year's game as well, where you think you have the game in the bag and you give them an inch, and next thing you know, it seems like they're unstoppable and you can't do
Yeah.
anything right.
You can't pick up the puck.
Yeah.
You can't make passes.
so you think the momentum, obviously that's always been a part of the game, but do you think that's even swung a little bit more to make it tougher in 17, where once you start sliding, you're in big trouble?
If certain games, it has definitely felt like we're playing good, and then we make one bad play, and then there's just nothing goes right, and for no reason. You can't get your stick on the puck. You can't make any passes. I mean, it could just be a mental breakdown by your whole team, but it seems to be there is a definite momentum shift in the game that's making it particularly difficult for you to stay in
Without
it.
a doubt. I have to agree there is.
I felt the momentum swing in the game that Dead Sawyer just mentioned, though. But no, that's like 100% right on topic there. Like, we were up 4-1, and then you guys get one, and then next thing you know, at 2 minutes in, the game's tied up. It's like, okay, what just happened, guys? Now we got to turn the momentum around or get something going our way. Otherwise, the momentum is a big thing in this game. I think it's still something that it's been in EA for a while now. If not, it's been it's definitely in NHL 17 much more than it's been in any other NHL game.
For sure.
Let's move on to another segment we like to call Top Guns, and I think this is mostly about the best performers of the week, and we're gonna let Broski and Dead Soul take care of the forwards, and MGM take a look at some of the defensemen that were in the power rankings that came out yesterday. And again, I'll look at our goaltenders. Let's start with you, Broski, and talk about some of the guys, a few of the players who who look like they had a pretty good week and put up some decent numbers for their teams.
I do got to say there's been the top 6 point getters in the AHL. They all have 15 points each for the first week. A lot of them going 3-0, but a lot of them going 2-1, 2-1, and 2-1. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Holy hell! Anyways, and 4 out of the 6 of these guys are all prospects. So that goes back to the is there a big level of talent in the league, and is there going to be a lot of new guys coming in and doing what we wouldn't expect them to do, just like the J Clauses last year? And there will be the J Clauses of this season, and it wouldn't surprise me if NWA is one of those guys. Same with Poopin since '95. They all have 15 points each. But the guy I'm most impressed is the center from Albany. Amazing. He's a prospect. He's 3-0, and he's got 8 goals and 7 assists, and he's a plus 11, and he's been killing it. I watched a few Albany games, and I'm really impressed with that guy there. I'm curious to see how he carries out in the season.
You're talking about
It's going to be
amazing?
interesting to see how all these guys. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and that is somebody I think I saw when 17 first came out. I did want to playing a bunch of games with him, and definitely that was somebody who was a nice pickup for Albany, and somebody that you going to have to look out for now a little bit more than some of the typical guys that you see out there. And Albany, I think, put together a pretty good team so far this year. Anybody else? Who else you want to talk about, bro?
Oh, well, two-way hockey on the Hershey Bears. He's an amateur, and he's 3-0 right now, too, doing the same thing as Amazing. And they're amazing, and, he's killing it out there right now. There's a lot of top centers in the league that are going to be top centers for the rest of the season, and wouldn't surprise me if they go NHL next season if they keep up the rate that they're at right now.
Dead Soul, do you have a couple of players you want to talk about that you have in mind, or anything that you want to add on to what Broski talked about?
Well, just looking at the list here, you can see right away that there's a few people. There's already 3 guys there from Hershey in particular. They're King Jersh, like he said, two-way hockey, and HJF14. They all have between them like 15 points. So yeah, like that team in particular, I guess that group of guys is looking like they're going to probably be something to look out for overall. And like I said before, NJ Devil 08, he's there with 14 points in three games, with all 3 games that he won with a +9 as well. So I guess I don't know if you. I see Jew of Canada at the top here too with 2 wins and 12 points, +9. So yeah, I mean, these are some guys that I think we'll have to keep an eye on, see what next week brings, see if they can continue that streak going of the first week. But I mean, it is early. Things like this change, and they can change pretty suddenly. So I think we'll probably see all these names up here again. But it'll be interesting to see if anybody else starts to pop out and really surprise us.
Yeah, Kitty King's done a nice job over there in Hershey and put together a good squad of guys from CHL, some other guys like you mentioned, amazing, and 2A hockey, and HJ, who's his AGM, are guys that you've probably seen when you've played around in drop-ins. They put together a nice little squad over there, and I think they really have some good chemistry going on. So it'll be interesting to see how they do the rest of the way, but. Let's move over to defensemen and MG. Certainly some guys that we've seen before, but definitely a bunch of names that maybe we haven't necessarily seen talked about in the AHL a lot.
Yeah, I mean, seeing some good points put up by defensemen so far this season, and I think that also speaks to the way this game played in 17 compared to 16. I think the forwards kind of take over and really focus on the offense and not really have to get the defense involved. Whereas I think this year you really need to get your defensemen involved and to spread out the defense, and it's definitely showing with the amount of points that I'm seeing in the top list here for defensemen.
There are a couple of guys here that I know relatively well. Sugar Soze, who was part of the Bears team that we had last year, number 6 in the power rankings at a +8, 3-0 record. And a couple of others from the Bears. Stende, who's, again, playing very well, a +11 there on lefty. A couple of other guys that I've played with on a consistent basis. Now You're Dead, Angry Dangler, Crazy, all doing well, all with 3-0 records and on the plus side of the ledger. And towards the bottom of this list, I think is very important to mention is, again, Albany with 2 very solid defensemen who are, listed there as 18 and 19. But I've watched them play a little bit this year, and Bottleman and King Ramon, who are +5 and +6 on the season, and they are also undefeated at 3-0. And again, Albany with some good offensive talent, but they bounced it off with a couple of good defensemen as well. And they seem to have a good mix of everything on that team.
Yeah, definitely. I think, defensemen, I think you pay attention a little bit more to their plus-minus as well than you would look at for forwards. And looking at this list here, Patrick Cocaine, +13 with 4 points and a 3-0 record. Obviously there may have been some lopsided wins there, but +13 in 3 games is a pretty hard thing to do as a defenseman. And you got a few guys that are in the double digits in the plus-minus column in this list. So that's a good thing.
We'll move on to goaltending, and there are quite a few guys here who have had a solid week. Be Nice over on the Wolves, 5-0. We know how good he is. 1-0 shutout against Cleveland, and that was an interesting game to watch. If you like good defense and good goaltending, that was Be Nice against Ced Noel, 2 very good goaltenders. Noel, I'm sure you saw him up as somebody in the 3 stars of his games all the time. So it was a game you would anticipate with those 2 goaltenders, a 1-0 shutout for the Wolves over Cleveland, and then Be Nice with 18 saves against the Barracuda in their 5-1 win. So no surprise there. Mivians for the Bears got called up twice to play this week, and 2 shutouts, five shots against the Americans in that win, and then 11 shots and 11 saves against Providence. The Providence game, interesting. He had 4 different D-men for both games, but and I think he had a couple of ECUs in those games as well. So, good from what I've seen so far with him. Good goaltender, decent positioning. A little bit busy with his movement, but didn't hurt him in neither one of those games. And with the Bears defense, he could have a nice record if he sees more time with them. OMG Price, 31, 4-1 with Texas this week. 16 saves and a 2-1 victory over the Condors. He was playing with 3 ECUs in that game, and still had a nice game in goal. Stays in the butterfly a lot. Maybe a lot of guys would call him a middle sitter, but I think with 17, I can't necessarily blame him since I've had too many shots go past me when I'm not in the butterfly. So I kind of get why he does that. You just have to make sure you don't get burned with that in the long run. Rask 5-1, 2.13 goals against. Obviously, anybody in the AHL last year knows how quickly and powerfully he came onto the scene. He's a good goaltender that even if he does have a game where it's a little bit of an issue, he bounces right back, and so the Wild have a solid backstop there. Trip 23, who I've seen play goal a lot, but he's been playing defense in the league, is playing goal for the Wolves this year. So they not only have B-Nice, but they have Tripp, who went 3-0 this week, 19 saves in the 5-2 win over the Admirals. He's been seen as NHL caliber at one time, and certainly may be able to show that as a goaltender in the long run. Bulging Twine 3-1. We saw him in the preseason a lot, and he was just phenomenal in this game. And I think Twine's going to be up in this list all the time. Quick shout out to Sergeant Van Dues, because he is a guy for the Roadrunners we called up from TC for a couple of ECUs this week, and just did great in 2 games. And I like to bring him up just because he's one of the old guys. He's older than me, so I'm not the oldest guy on my team, which I'm thrilled about. Finally.
I do want to bring up one thing there, Sibs. There's a very, very interesting trade by Hershey Bears and Springfield Thunderbirds. So what actually happened is Mivians, who we just talked about with the 2 shutouts in 2 games type of thing, got traded actually to the Thunderbirds today for Proud Dad 1996, I believe it was. 1977 to Thunderbirds, yeah. So that's actually a kind of interesting trade, just from a guy that just came off of 2 big shutouts, 2 big shutout wins for Hershey to get traded over to Thunderbirds. Now, maybe there was some beef between some players for this trade, or maybe it was just Hershey couldn't turn down what the Thunderbirds were offering, which was Proud Dad. Or it could have been an NHL part deal, It's very interesting to see something like that happen from a goaltender that hasn't lost a game yet, nor let in a goal.
Well, it's also really interesting because Alex Cleroux, 1995, the Thunderbird goalie for this week for 6 games, he went 4-2, 2.17 goals against, and so they already have a fairly solid goaltender back there. Are they just looking for another good backup, or are they looking to make a move? I guess we'll find out over time. But Springfield certainly has bolstered their goaltending, I think, with that move. One guy on the list, one guy not on the list that I wanted to mention was Jay Dragoon for the Admirals. 4-1, 2.62 goals against, 34 saves in a double overtime 3-2 win against the Griffins the other night. And I like him a lot. I played with him in another league last season, and he is one of the better technical goaltenders that I know. He really studies the position, likes to talk about it, share thoughts with other guys in LG, and so I was happy to see that he had a good start to the week, and that game against the Griffins certainly one that I would urge you to go look at. And I know it was. I think it was Jade who actually streamed the game for that one, so you get a chance to take a look at it. But I wanted to mention Jade, even though he wasn't in the power rankings, because he also went up against 104 shots this week, which is like double what most guys went up against, or a little less than double. So you have to bring him into it when you have 104 shots and a 2.62 goals against, and with the week that he had. So. That's it for all the goaltenders at this point. I made you guys talk about offense and defense respectively, but are there any other players outside the area that you were covering that you noticed in some of your games this week? We'll start with MGM because I know he's pretty observant on everything, every game he's part of.
Yeah. We had a few good games. One on my team in particular that stood out was Joyrides. He put up a couple big nights. I think, unfortunately, one of the games was up against Roadrunners, where he got a few of his points. But yeah,
Is that going to be a theme this season? You guys are going to talk about how you pummeled us, or?
But I was a little surprised that he didn't make it onto the top
Right.
list there. I mean, he also put up 12 points in 3 games. I think he went 2-1. So I mean, that may have been why he didn't get on the list there. But 9 goals and 3 assists and a +6, and big face-off percentage as well, 60%. But yeah, he's just continued his dominating ways since last year.
Dead Soul, do you have a couple anybody else that you saw play this week on your team or anywhere else that on defense or as a goaltender that you think was interesting for you to watch play?
Well, basically, like I said already, with the Wolves game, that one in particular kind of stands out because on both sides it was just a very defensive game, as well as the goalies, I think, did an excellent job there. I think I'll be a little more prepared for you next week with a few other people overall that I could point out, but in particular, yeah, more of just the team itself as a whole. At least the lineup that we saw. I'm really looking forward to our rematch with them for sure because we were that close for the win, and it was a fun game. It was just a real hockey game. It felt like both sides really were trying to just play the game the way it's supposed to be played, and to me, it's when it's a defensive battle like that, I think it's pretty exciting. It becomes like more about the goalies and the defenders, and the forwards just trying to to beat those guys. So yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap up the show here in a few minutes, as some guys are already talking about in the YouTube chat there. It's just about practice time. And so, this is why we're doing a show at this time of the night, so that we can get everybody to jump onto the PlayStation right after it and get going. Let's just go one by one to all 3 of the GMs here. Let's start with MG. Week 1, if you're going to give your team, or if you're going to give your team, or at least how things went for you and your team, give yourself a letter grade here. How do you guys think you fared considering your matchups and your squad this week?
I'd put us at a B plus. I think it was hard to get everyone scheduled first week. I think a lot of guys are also having to deal with their NHL teams. Shaking up their lineups and sending guys down and taking guys from their teams. But I think all in all, we put together a few good lines. We got some good chemistry together, and I think it's going to make us help us take that next step next week. This starting tonight, hopefully.
Dedzo, how do you feel about your Moose squad?
Well, I feel that we all know that we did a pretty decent job. I mean, the games we lost were fairly close for the most part. Everybody definitely brings their A game. So I mean, I'll put an A for effort, and an overall, I think we did a B, maybe a B minus. But I think everybody on my team could agree that we can do a lot better this week. We will do a lot better this week. And last week it's last week. Leave that behind, and let's just look to improve on what we can, and yeah, just get the wins.
Broski, other than the fact that you only have one good goaltender and it's not me, how do you feel? How do you feel about week 1? And other than the fact that I know you wanted to jump off a bridge trying to move guys around and get things settled, but how do you grade us out as to how things went?
Goaltending, I'd say Van Duys A plus, Sibs B minus, B minus, maybe if I should say so. And but overall as a team, I think we played overall pretty well. I'd give us definitely I gotta beat MG, so I'd have to say B plus plus. No, overall I think we did all right. There's a few things we got to work on, and I mean it's week 1. I don't expect us to go 9-0, although I mean the Wolves did it. Why can't we? But that's for another topic, another day, maybe.
Yeah.
No, overall, I think we did all right, and week 2 is underway here in a few hours, and well, it's going to be a good one. I'm excited for the next week setup here.
I think it is a little interesting that all 3 of our teams are basically neck and neck in the Western playoff race there. So it should be interesting to see where we all sit at the end of next week when we do this podcast.
Absolutely.
There's certainly some good matchups tonight, and I know tomorrow night there is a Lehigh Valley, and I think I'm trying to remember who that game is, but there's a key game tomorrow night. I think it's Chicago and Lehigh. At 9:30 tomorrow night. That'll be a fun one to watch. Lehigh Valley sitting towards the top of their division, and the Wolves. If they get past tonight, they might be Lehigh Valley's chance to knock them off. So, and give them their first loss. But we'll find out how that works out. As tonight, Chicago has Hartford and Bridgeport, and if they get past them, then it'll be a nice matchup Monday night against Lehigh Valley. We'll talk more about key games coming up down the road in the future for the following weeks. But we're running out of time here, and I want to thank Dead Soul and MGM for joining us for the first show, and you guys will be chiming in on the show as often as you can. But we know Dead Soul has typically wakes up and has about 200 emails to look at every day from this league, so
Not anymore. It's all good now.
Well, listen, thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll catch you down the road. Broski, again, another fun little show. We'll have to do this again next week, and hopefully things will settle down for all of our teams where we're not worrying so much about making moves and all that.
Let's hope MG and they settle down, but let's hope our team settles up.
Very good.
Just a little bit, some friendly competition.
That's right.
It's not going to be fun if it's not competitive.
That's right.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next week. That's it for the show this week. AHL this week. I'm Tony Sabilla, T. Sibs, and we will talk to you next Sunday night at 7 p.m. Week 2 starting in about an hour and a half. Have fun and good luck.